Hands behind your back. That's that much.
Have you ever walked past someone on the sidewalk, their entire world crammed into a worn-out bag, and pondered what led them there?
For about an hour before it happened.
It's like knocking birds off a line, is what it is, bro.
Like, I don't really associate with homeless people too much, because I'll probably think of, God damn it, there's a fucking trash can right over there.
It's simple to figure you've got their tail-pegged laziness, poor decisions, yeah, but the reality of the homeless in America is far more intricate.
Yeah, maybe like 75% of them.
Really?
75%.
In this clip, we're debunking 5 major misconceptions about homelessness that muddy our views and block true progress. From their identities to their actual needs, let's reveal the truths side by side with open minds and hearts eager to understand. Hang in there, you could view this crisis in a totally fresh way. The truth about laziness and homelessness. One of the toughest myths about the homeless in America is that they're merely lazy, refusing to pitch in and take a job. It's a notion that's tightly stitched into our society's core, the belief that sheer effort can pull anyone out of hardship. We've all caught the saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and it's easy to slap it onto this situation. But the facts, once you dig in, paint a totally different picture, one that shakes our guesses and calls for some humility.
I was always out trying to find a can of bottle, make money to support my children and pay my bills, so I never had time to get lonely, so I don't know what loneliness really is. I did what I could do in life, and I did the best I could, so I ain't got no regret, though.
The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2023 Annual Homeless Assessment Report shows that about 20 to 25% of homeless people in America hold jobs. Yep, they're working. These folks punch the clock at burger joint shops or job sites, but still can't swing a roof over their heads. In places like San Francisco or New York, where living costs have exploded, a minimum wage gig, or even a couple often falls short of rent bills and everyday needs. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition's 2022 report hammers it home no state in the U.S. lets a full-time minimum wage earner rent a one-bedroom at market prices. Not a single one. Picture grinding more than 40 hours weekly and still crashing in a shelter or on a bench because your check won't stretch to rent. That's the daily grind for folks like Jerry, a Marine vet from Denver, whose life highlights the money crunch and the non-stop hustle just to get by while unhoused. Jerry says homelessness is a full-time gig on top of another. He notes that roughly 60% of Denver's unhoused folks have jobs yet can't pay for housing.
So we need houses that are low income for people that would be rented to them according to their income. That's the 0 to 30%.
Each day is a fight, pitching and packing camp, scrounging meals and water, locking down a safe spot to crash. No weekends off, he adds. Homeless people are anything but lazy. Jerry's tale also exposes how the system hammers the poor. He's been ticketed 3 times for urban camping, despite having no other options. When he can't cover the fines, he's forced into community service, which he dubs modern-day slavery, laboring for the city with 0 pay. His case is just one of many that uncover a brutal reality. People aren't homeless from slacking off, but from being stuck in an economy where pay, housing costs, and chances just don't line up. So why does this myth hang on? I think it partly stems from our urge to boil down a messy issue. It's simpler to point at the person than to tackle big problems like frozen wages or a housing market that's unreachable for millions. But pinning it on the guy on the corner misses the full view. It's not about missing drive. It's about missing chances, missing cheap homes, and missing a buffer that keeps folks from dropping too low. What about you? Have you ever figured someone was homeless because they didn't push hard enough? It's worth thinking about where that thought comes from, and if it stands up to the evidence. Addiction, mental health, and the real faces of the homeless. Another tough myth to drop is the notion that every person who's homeless in America is battling addiction or mental health problems. It's a cliche we spot in films, on TV news, or even in our local areas, a ragged figure talking to themselves or with a cardboard sign, and we figure that sums it up.
We've only had her for a few months. She's a rescue. These streets, if you're not a strong-minded person, it's gonna eat you alive.
Sure, some homeless folks deal with these issues, but slapping the same label on everybody is not just wrong. It's seriously deceptive. Let's check the stats. The National Low Income Housing Coalition's 2022 report says the top reason for homelessness isn't drugs or mental illness. It's the shortage of affordable places to live. HUD's 2023 numbers show only around 30% of homeless people have a substance problem or a mental health diagnosis. That means most 70% don't match this image. Plenty are regular people who got evicted after losing a job, facing a medical bill, or a rent hike they couldn't handle. They're individuals who, just like us, were one or two tough blows from losing it all. Think about the daily life in spots like Grants Pass, Oregon, where the town's policies often feed these damaging cliches. One guy interviewed there spoke straight to the constant public blame he gets. He says they're trying to claim that all homeless people are either heavy drinkers or junkies. He then shuts down the broad brush, pointing to himself, as evidence all homeless people are not alcoholics or drug addicts. I can say that because I'm not a drug addict, I'm not an alcoholic.
No, it's not fun at all. I'm getting high to maintain, to be able to get up in the morning, to be able to eat, to be able to, do normal things, try to do normal things. I'm not getting high to have fun or because, it's just something I want to do. It's something that now.
His words hit hard, reminding us that while folks hunt for an easy personal blame for homelessness, the real drivers like no affordable housing and shaky finances get overlooked. Tales like his are way more typical than we realize, but the image of the strung-out wanderer drowns them out. Why does this myth linger? I figure it's because it lets us keep our distance if we think homelessness only hits those people, the ones who feel worlds apart from us. It's tough to face that it could happen to anyone under the wrong conditions. Still, the fact is, a lot of us are nearer to that brink than we want to admit. A pink slip, a hospital stay, or a surprise expense could shift everything. So tell me, do you believe we put too much weight on addiction and mental illness in homelessness talks, rather than the larger money issues? It's worth mulling over as we go on. Beyond the city limits, homelessness in every community. When you think about the homeless in America, you likely picture jammed urban sidewalks, Los Angeles with its endless tent rows, New York's packed subway platforms, or San Francisco's pavement covered in sleeping bags. It's simple to assume homelessness only strikes big metro areas where insane rents and hectic living shove folks over the brink. But here's the thing that's a myth we've got to ditch. Homelessness ignores area codes. It's not only an urban headache, it's silently ripping through tiny towns and remote countryside, too.
I don't know where to go. And I really don't know what the solution could be besides having some place that people can afford to help us get back on our feet.
The stats back it up. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2023 report says more than 10% of America's homeless folks reside in rural spots. That's thousands of individuals usually out of view. In places like Kentucky's backcountry roads or Nebraska's vast fields, homelessness doesn't always mean a sign on a corner. It could be a family bunking on a buddy's sofa, a single mom bedding down in her vehicle with her children, or somebody pitching a tent in the trees because there's no other choice. These situations are genuine, but they slip under the radar since they don't hit the news. Picture a little town in rural Oregon, where a 2022 local poll uncovered dozens of families stuck in trailers lacking heat or plumbing after nearby factories closed. No shelters nearby, no employment help to grab just people scraping to stay afloat. It's a separate battle from city scenes, but every bit as gut-wrenching. Rural zones usually miss the support that cities offer, like walk-in hubs or pantries, which makes escaping poverty even harder. Why do we cling to the idea that homelessness is purely a major city thing? The media's a huge factor, focusing on city tent cities that draw eyes. Also, we love idealizing small-town existence, picturing quaint farms and close neighbors. But hardship doesn't skip the sticks, and neither does homelessness. So here's my question. Have you ever thought about what homelessness looks like beyond city borders? It's a query that could shift your view of this problem and who you figure needs our support. Why free housing isn't the only answer. It's tempting to figure that passing out keys to apartments would erase homelessness. Just hand everybody a spot to stay and boom, issue solved, yeah. It's an appealing idea, but once you look at the truth for the homeless in America, this notion is way too basic for a mess that's far from it. Housing is a major chunk of the fix, absolutely, but seeing it as the entire deal is like thinking one jigsaw piece finishes the whole image. Life's more complicated, and so is this mess. Let's discuss what really delivers. Initiatives like Housing First, which prioritize getting folks into steady homes up front, have made huge differences. Look at Utah, for instance. In the early 2000s, they pushed Housing First hard, and long-term homelessness dropped by almost 91% from 2005 to 2015, per the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. The reasoning is simple: provide a secure spot to crash, and they stand a stronger chance at handling other hurdles like landing employment or improving health. It's a lifesaver, and it's gotten tons of people off the pavement. But here's the rub: housing by itself isn't a total remedy. For many, homelessness is knotted with other battles, poverty, medical problems missing, work skills, or past traumas that linger. Without aid for those root issues, a place to live is just a temporary patch, not a cure. I heard about a vet named Tom in Portland. He scored an apartment via Housing First, but without backup for his PTSD or assistance securing reliable jobs, he fell apart and wound up back outside. That's Common HUD's 2023 data indicate roughly 20% of folks in certain housing efforts slide into trouble again without added help like therapy skills programs or doctor visits. That's why the solution must stretch past mere shelter. Folks require mental health care, substance help if needed, and solid roots to wages that cover living. Even dealing with government aid can seem like another job. It's a lot for anybody. And don't overlook living expenses. Zillow said in 2023 that a one-bedroom in major cities runs over $1,800 monthly on average. Even starting with a gratis unit, holding on to it on slim funds is rough without support. So why do we hold on to this housing as magic fix belief? I reckon we all crave a fast, tidy answer, something to highlight and declare, done, we nailed it. Constructing places seems manageable. Fixing poverty or health system holes feels impossible. But if we end up at housing, we're dooming people to trip. So here's something to chew on. Are we overly hooked on housing as the homelessness cure, or are we ignoring other parts of the puzzle? It's worth considering what true security demands. Breaking stereotypes. It's not just older men on the streets. When you picture the homeless in America, what comes to mind? Likely a grizzled guy in his 50s or 60s parked solo on a park bench with a ragged beard and a cardboard plea. It's an image burned in from countless repeats. But reality shows homelessness is far more varied, and this cliché conceals the pain of countless others, women, children, whole families, and youth all trapped in the same grind. Let's face the stats. HUD's 2023 Annual Homeless Assessment Report reveals around 22% of the U.S. homeless population are children under 18. That's almost 1 in 4 kids who belong in schools or on playgrounds, not crashing in shelters or dozing in vehicles. Families usually headed by single mothers form a rising share, hitting about 30% in 2023. Women appear more frequently, particularly those escaping abuse or slammed by financial strain. And it's not only seniors, young adults, such as those leaving foster care or hunting for reliable payfall through the gaps as well. I remember Laura, a lady I encountered in New York City's Times Square scraping by with her little dog. Laura wasn't there from poor decisions or unemployment. She escaped a violent partner after 4 brutal head traumas that caused permanent brain injury. She explained the injury clouds her thoughts hindering concentration choices or navigating complex systems. One day she simply walked out, abandoning everything because her mental fog made staying life-threatening. Now she's exposed on the streets, bedding down on subway vents for heat and depending on passers-by to guard her scant possessions just to hit a public bathroom. Laura's experience illustrates how domestic abuse can force women, often with unseen disabilities, into peril and instability. This myth counts because it decides who we believe merits aid. If we view homelessness solely as an elderly man's burden, we ignore children needing steady education, families craving childcare, or teens requiring a boost to dodge endless poverty. It allows us to shrug it off, figuring it's distant from our world. But in truth, homelessness might be your next-door neighbor, your colleague, or someone you brush past daily. Conclusion: understanding what's really behind homelessness. Homelessness in America isn't merely a problem we spot on sidewalks or in trending clips. It's a reflection of the bigger cracks in our society. Behind every tent, every rolled-up blanket, there's a person who once held dreams, paychecks, and loved ones just like we do. But public views are too often built on cliches instead of facts. We catch lines like "they picked this path" or "they're too lazy to work." Yet these snap judgments skip over the financial, social, and emotional battles that drive people into homelessness. Grasping this truth calls for compassion, not sympathy, knowledge, not turning away. When we peer deeper, we see that homelessness isn't about personal flaws. It's about widespread oversights and shared duty. As we've broken down these 5 myths, I hope you're beginning to view the homeless in America with sharper eyes. They're not simply idle wanderers or broken spirits we might imagine. They're employees, parents, children, and locals caught in a tangle of structural hurdles no one solution can unravel. Ever held wrong ideas about the homeless? Drop your views in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going. The myths we've covered on laziness, substance issues, city-only scope, easy fixes, and who the homeless really are reveal our tendency to dumb down a tangled crisis. Still, grasping these realities is the starting point for actual progress. What can we do with this insight? First, push ourselves to doubt our first thoughts. Next time you pass someone on the street, stop and realize their background could be far more layered than it looks. Second, push for rules that hit the core problems: cheaper homes, higher pay, easy-to-get healthcare, and strong backup networks. Groups like the National Coalition for the Homeless or nearby shelters are making huge impacts, and they need our backing through time money or just getting the word out. I'll end with one last question. What's one action you could take in your area to shift the story on homelessness? It might be reading up passing this video along or contacting a local group. Whatever it is, every move matters. If this video has shifted your outlook, I'd love your feedback in the comments below.
That's disgusting, but there's...
And if you found it helpful, smack that like button, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you catch our next exploration of the topics shaping our nation. Together we can push past myths and toward answers that truly count.
Don't be greedy. Dumpster.